The controversy swirling around Donald Trump's top health advisor, Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who made a number of false, misleading claims during some pretty tough questioning on Thursday in Congress that was examining the 7 months that he has led the #1 U.S. health agency. As an example, during an exchange with a Democratic Senator Mark Warner about how many Americans died from COVID-19, Robert Kennedy falsely claimed that nobody knows the answer because of a lack of government data.
Do you accept the fact that 1 million Americans died from COVID?
I don't know how many died.
You're the Secretary of Health and Human Services. You don't have any idea how many Americans died from COVID?
I don't think anybody knows that because there was so much data chaos coming out of the CDC, and there were so many perverse incentives. And these are modeling
You don't know the answer of how many Americans died from COVID. This is the Secretary of Health and Human Services.
Not only is Kennedy's claim false, but that data, by the way, is easily accessible. Around 1.2 million Americans died from the virus, according to the U.S. Centers for Disease Control, and as well the World Health Organization. Bigger picture, Kennedy is a vaccine skeptic who for many years has consistently questioned the effectiveness and the safety of vaccines. And as for the Centers for Disease Control, or CDC, which falls under his purview, he recently fired the woman in charge of it, a woman that he appointed himself. He also got rid of all the members of an advisory board, a scientific board that was in charge of a lot of the operations, giving guidance to the CDC. And this has led to a firestorm of criticism that he is unfit for the job. Let's bring in U.S. political analyst Eric Ham with more here. The takeaways from that hearing, as well as the future for RFK Jr. What do you think, Eric?
Well, it was an explosive hearing, no question about it. In fact, there was a lot of pushback, not only from Democrats, but also from Republicans, some of whom are actual physicians and doctors that were serving on that committee. But clearly what we're seeing, at least today, is the White House still supports RFK Jr. wholeheartedly. And we are hearing both from the president as well as the vice president pushing back at the detractors and the critics of RFK. And so I think clearly what we're seeing here is this is going to be a standoff that will continue to take place as we see RFK continue to move to eliminate vaccines and other controversial moves by HHS as well as the CDC. But clearly what we're seeing right now is President Donald Trump continues to support this nominee, and he has made clear that even though he has some ideas that are out of the mainstream, this is the guy that Donald Trump wants leading the nation with this new mantra, make America healthy again.
Yeah, and he is very combative, in his approach and pushing back against the senators that were questioning him. How much of this is political theater? How much of this is real? What's your take?
Well, I think there is much of both, but clearly a lot of the criticism that we're seeing is in fact warranted. The fact that the Health and Human Services Secretary does not know how many people in fact died from COVID, and the fact that he is also eliminating vaccines and also placing many people to serve on this key advisory panel that have been seen as oppositional to that big pharma. And so this is now going to shape up to be a fight with big pharma, who we know plays very heavily in elections, both midterms and presidential. And now it's going to be, I think, very, very difficult for the president when he looks to try to stave off a possible loss next year in the midterm elections, with many of those businesses who will likely be standing beside Democrats as they look to reshape Washington and, more in particular, Congress.
Do you think there is a tipping point here for RFK Jr. in which the president will say, you know what, this is now too much, it's time for you to go? We saw that in Trump's first term, but in his second term, a bit of a different approach, Eric, as you know, where he really is standing by and behind a lot of these controversial picks that he's put in office.
Many of these cabinet secretaries are very different from what we saw during Donald Trump's first term in office. These are people who are not moving anywhere off of the reservation in terms of MAGA. They are standing solidly behind the president. But also what we are seeing here is RFK Jr. is doing exactly what Donald Trump wants him to do, and that is tear down the system and build it in a way that benefits and supports the view of MAGA, and more in particular of this White House. So there is no sign whatsoever that RFK is remotely in danger of losing his position, even as we're beginning to see more and more Republicans actually voicing concern about what they're seeing take place from HHS.
Hey, wonderful to see you, Eric. Thanks for taking the time as always.
Thank you.